We got a new project here to work on. Dell Dimension 4100. Pentium 3 inside. Made for Windows 2000, Windows 98. But it does have an ME sticker on the side of it. And I drove an hour and a half to pick this up. It also came with this keyboard and mouse. They're Dell, but pretty crappy. And I got this nice Altec Lansing speaker set with the subwoofer, which is the same set that I'm running right now back here in the shop, and it sounds incredible. This one's got a bigger subwoofer, and it's also got bass and treble controls on the main speaker here, where mine's only got a volume on it. So that's actually an upgrade to the one that I have here in the shop, but I'm probably not going to set that one up. I don't even know if this one works. I don't even know if this computer works. All I know is I seen the listing for it, and I went and I picked it up. So let me clear this off the bench here, and then we'll go through and we'll take a look at this Dell Dimension a little bit closer. This is probably the original drive that came with it, but it's got Sharpie on it. Somebody wrote an E on there with Sharpie and D on here. I guess you want to keep track of which drive was what. But this is a black one with a silver door cover that was put on there. So neither one of these parts here are original to it. This probably is. And you got your 1.44 meg floppy drive right there. And the indicator light for it. Power button that lights up. Hard drive activity light. Reset button. And actually a decent intake here and on the bottom. And if we take a look at the right side of it, you can see it looks pretty decent. It's not very scuffed up. Taking a look at the back of it here, you can see in the power supply it looks pretty grungy, so the power supply is going to have to come apart. This is assuming everything works on it. That's going to have to come apart and get cleaned out. And the same with the intake fan there. That's looking quite grungy. You can see we've got two PS2 ports for mouse and keyboard, two USB 1.1. We've got, of course, our serial port and our parallel printer port, and diagnostic LEDs. And there is a VGA card in here. I have no idea what it is. An Ethernet card, a sound card, and a modem. And if we take a look at this side here, you can see the left side of it. The panel that opens is actually nice and clean too. So overall, this thing is in really good condition. I haven't seen the inside of it yet, so I'm going to pop this panel off and we're going to take a look at the inside. Alright, panel's removed. You see the power supply has a date on it of 9/23/2000. We got the two optical drives here. And it must have been another model that had a third RAM slot in there, and as you can see, it was never installed on here. Looks like Intel chipset. I have no idea what chipset that is. Alright, you can see quite a bit of dust on the fan there. And there is the heatsink. That's a pretty interesting looking heatsink. And it's a socket 370 Pentium 3, and I have no idea what Pentium 3 that is. And here's a look at the GPU. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. It looks like it may have been original to this, and I'm going to say this is most likely like an MX2 nvidia. There's a sound card and a modem. And we've got a hard drive tucked in the front here. And it looks like we can mount another hard drive here if we want, and there's our floppy drive. So actually the inside of this has got, there's a layer of dust on it, but it doesn't look as bad as I expected it to. I thought this thing was going to be just packed full of dust, judging by those fans. So before I do anything else, I'm going to put the shroud back on, and we're going to plug this in and just see if it even works. Alright, so I've got power, USB keyboard, and the VGA to this monitor here out. And I just used the keyboard that came with it, and hopefully that will work. And we find the power button here. Alright, well, it's doing something. There's a green light on, and I just saw a flash on the screen. There we go. I missed it. Windows XP thing, that's definitely not what's going to be staying on here. You can hear that hard drive. Alright, I don't have a mouse hooked to this. I wasn't really I don't know what I was expecting here, but can't really seem to get the keyboard to work either. But I imagine there's probably a password on here anyway, so let me see if I can go ahead and restart this and get back to the splash screen. Alright, I got old eMachine's PS2 keyboard hooked up to it, and you can see we have got a Pentium 3 933, so that's actually pretty good. 512 megs of PC133, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. And you can tell, you know, the system does work, so this is definitely worth the trip to go get. Alright, so I think now that I know that it works, I still don't know what the GPU is, and like I said, this thing probably has a password on it, so I'm not going to be able to get into the operating system. And it's not going to be running Windows XP anyway, so I'm not even worried about it. But I am going to go through and get this thing completely disassembled, including the power supply. We're going to disassemble that, get everything all cleaned out, and we'll put it back together and get some Windows 98 loaded on it. Wow, there's a thick layer of dust inside this floppy drive. Ah, look at that. There was some dust getting sucked in the front, obviously. I mean, you can tell just by looking at that. It's a Max Tour drive from 2000. Alright, GPU is out. Man, it really doesn't say what GPU this is, so. PCI networking card, 3COM. 10100. Alright, sound card is Sound Blaster Live CT4780. And the modem, but pretty much useless these days. Power supply was only held in with 2 screws. And yeah, she's pretty grungy. We've got a Dell 200 watt power supply. Alright, there's 2 little tabs on the back that be pushed into this fan. And now we can remove it, and you can see all the shit that's falling off of there. Grabbed a screwdriver to come in here and unscrew the motherboard from the case here, and I don't see a single screw on it. Instead, you got these like little legs right there. I seem to hook it in. If you look in the back, there's a screw right here. Let's see what that does. Aha. Alright. So there's a bracket on here. That screw went right there through the back of the case to hold this motherboard in. Well, there we go. There's our motherboard. So I'm going to get everything all scrubbed up, and then we'll come back once I get everything cleaned up, put back together, and then we'll be able to load Windows 98 on it and really check it out. Alright, one nice thing about this case is all these plastic parts are able to come off nice and easy. The top and the bottom have just like one tab that lock it in, and then they slide right off. You see they cleaned up really nice, just some hot soapy water. Same with the metal part of the case. Yeah, I just dried it all off with the shop vac. If you don't have a compressor or don't have access to your compressor, like right now my compressor, I didn't feel like firing it up and going outside, so I just used the hose from the shop vac, just hook it up to the exhaust on the shop vac, and you can pretty much blow dry them, kind of like the blowers at the car wash. After you get your car washed, it'll blast all the water off there, and you can also use it to, you know, blow the dust out of these. You know, if you got one that's really dusty, just put your shop vac hose on the outlet and just blow all the dust out of it. It'll blow, these things will blow anything, kind of like my ex-wife. But it did a nice job blowing this thing dry. All right, motherboard's all cleaned off. There's a good look at our socket 370 Pentium 3 933, and this little thing right here is what was left of the original thermal pad that was on there. So we're going to give it some high-tech shit here with the Protronics. Little dab will do you. Protronics. Protronics. And then this is a lightweight little heatsink on here. It's all aluminum. Aluminum fins, aluminum body width. I think that's a thin nickel-plated piece of copper that's just epoxy to the bottom of it there. Getting there. Alright, check it out. Came out really good. This thing is mint. I was really impressed how well this thing cleaned up. I mean, it looks brand new. I did replace that off-color drive here with a, this is an LG DVD multi-drive. It's even a light scribe. But the interesting thing is the color matches this, so, you know, it doesn't matter. I put it in there, it works. And the original drive that was in here, remember there was Sharpie on there. I managed to get all the Sharpie off. That cleaned up really nice. Took the entire floppy drive apart and cleaned all the dust out of that and cleaned the heads off on it. And let's take a look on the inside. Now you can see the power supply looks nice and clean inside. This whole thing was disassembled and cleaned. That's the original 20 gigabyte hard drive that was in here, and Windows 98 SE is installed on it. I did replace the graphics card in here. The one that was in here was the TNT2 M64, and I ended up replacing that with a Geforce 2 MX400, which is not a great card by any means, but in this system it works well, and it's definitely an upgrade from the one that was in there. And I also replaced the Sound Blaster card that was in here with a SB0100, because the one that was in here, I could not get drivers, even the ones from Dell, to install no matter what. It would only install the game port, and that was it. It drove me nuts, so I just threw a 0100 in there because I know I've never had an issue installing drivers with that. So yeah, I mean, she cleaned up really nice. This thing is immaculate. This is probably one of the nicest looking Windows 98 PCs I've seen in a long time. And another interesting thing is this fan does not intake and blow down onto the CPU cooler. It actually exhausts and it draws air through the case, through the cooler, and out the back. So, pretty effective. So enough of the boring shit. Let's check out some games. Before the games, I ran 3D Mark 2001, and this system scored 2,492 points, which isn't really phenomenal, but when I ran the benchmark with the TNT2, it received 851 points, so there's that. The first game up is 4x4 Evo from 2000. Very tough to drive with a keyboard. I think the resolution here is 800 by 600. I didn't see an option to change it, but I didn't look into it all that hard either. The frame rate is staying well above 60 FPS. Next up is CTU Marine Sharpshooter, One Shot, One Kill from 2004. The resolution is set to 1024 by 768. This game has some very acrobatic enemies. The FPS spends most of its time between 40 and 50. Now this was a weird game. The House of the Dead from 1997. The resolution was limited to 640 by 480. You have no control over movement, just aiming, firing, and reloading. The FPS stayed right around 50 for the most part. Return to Castle Wolfenstein from 2001. We're playing at a resolution of 1024 by 768 with high settings and 32-bit textures. You can expect to shank Nazis at around 40 FPS with this setup. Unreal Gold from 1998. This is a game that I've actually never played before. At 1024 by 768 with high settings, 32-bit colors and textures selected, We range anywhere from 30 to 60 FPS. The last game I'm testing out with this Dell is Driver from 1999. I think the resolution here is 800 by 600, and I didn't see an option to change it, but all other details are turned on. I forgot how lightweight and floaty the car feels in this game, but it seems to average around 35 FPS here, and I was actually having a lot of fun driving around. I think the GPU is holding the system back. Unfortunately, it was the best AGP card I happen to have, and it's much better and newer than the original TNT2 that came with this PC. Everything I tried was playable and enjoyable, so in the end, that's really all that matters. For PC, I drove an hour and a half one way to pick up. I think it was worth it. She restored quite nicely and it looks pretty mint. If I had the room to keep a Windows 98 era PC set up, this one would be the one. Sadly, I don't, but it's going to make somebody a very nice retro gamer for sure. So I hope someone found this interesting, and if you made it to the end of the video, stay safe out there, and I will see you on the next one.